Hello, everyone. This is Dustin Hausner. I'm the Jewish Outreach and Program Director at the Wayne YMCA. All our Jewish programs are funded through the Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. Today, I'm really excited for our wonderful special guest. I've had wonderful opportunities to speak with him offline, and it's great to be able to do this interview online. So I'd like to introduce Rabbi Donn Gross. Rabbi Gross, it's wonderful to have you on.
Thank you, Dustin, and I look forward to this interview.
Fantastic. So I'm very curious for a number of reasons to have had you on, and one of the big ones is you are a rabbi who has a vegan synagogue. You are a vegan rabbi, which is something I think for many people very unique. So I'm curious. We'll start off from the bat. What led you to have this intermarriage between being a rabbi and having this vegan identity?
Well, that's a great question, Dustin. We're living at a time where it's a quantum moment. For many, many years, for centuries, science and religion were at odds with each other. They were always crashing heads. And, people of the cloth, they were interested, give me your spirit. But they were never interested in the body. They always, give that to a doctor, give it to a mechanic, let somebody else deal with that. We're living at a time where both science and religion are coming together, where the spirit and health are coming together. There's no difference. There is an intertwining of the two. We're finding out that one is dependent. One's mind is reflected in the health of the body. One's food inspires or can detract from the health of the body. So we're finding that we're not computer components. We're not a car where you pull out the engine or the filter. We are an integrated whole. And so therefore, in this century, a rabbi has to be interested not only in the soul, the spirit, the thinking of the person, but in the foods that they put in, the actions, the working out, and the entire health of the being. That this is the moment that we're in. And so when I became a rabbi 5 years ago, which was a really it was going to happen. The pot was going to boil. It just took a long time in my life. That was, and so all of my interests in becoming a rabbi, all the interests that I built up and learned about throughout my life, all came together. And so there's no difference between what you eat, what you think, what you view, how you react and speak to, and interact with other people, and how you interact with God. It's all one. It's not separate items. And so that's the idea of living a healthy life that is good for the environment and good for your body. How can that not be part of one's spiritual worship?
So let me dive a little deeper in the sense of, you have, I would say, a vegan shul. You yourself are a vegan. While many rabbis individually are maybe vegetarian or vegan, they don't make it necessarily a public, prominent part of the shul itself. I'm curious, what led to you wanting to make it kind of like a public identity as part of the congregation that you have? And also, obviously, where is the congregation that you have? I want to make sure we say where you're.
Right. So in my that's okay. In my congregation, a few of the people are vegan. All of the kiddushes that we have, all the food that we serve, is vegan. And the people know where I stand on it. As to your question, to me, being vegan is an essential element of being Jewish. There was a book written in Israel by a rabbi named Asa Kaiser, which I've translated into English. It's called Lifnei Iver, Before the Blind. And I've not only translated it, but I've made videos breaking down some of the chapters. They're on YouTube under the vegan Rabbi Donn Gross. And you can watch these things. And when you see this, you see that veganism, or a plant-based diet, is not some left-wing conspiracy, newfangled idea. It's deeply rooted not only in the words of the rabbis, but in the Torah, in the Bible. there are over 20 commandments, straightforward, telling us and ordering us how we have to interact with animals. This is not an option. So for instance, the overarching theme of all of the commandments are compassion towards an animal, certainly in its life, and absolutely if you're going to eat it, which by the way, is not the choice, the priority choice of God. It's a permission, but it's not a commandment. There are different types of laws in the Torah. Certain things God says, you must love God, you must do this, you must do that. Certain other things are permitted. I'm not going to tell you not to, and I'm not really happy about it, but I'm not going to stop you if you choose. Meat is in that category. It's not a commandment. So, but what is a commandment is not covering the mouth of an animal as it's on the threshing floor because it's going to want to eat. Not stopping an animal from doing from doing the things that are natural to it. If an animal is under a burden of a heavy load, you don't have a choice. You must go and help that animal. Whether sending a mother bird away, if you happen to need the eggs and you're going to take them, you must send the mother bird away because of the duress that you're going to put it under. All of the laws, the more than 20 laws, institute and mandate us to act in certain ways. Do you know, of compassion, do you know that there were rabbis who did not want to own a chicken because they were afraid that they could not give it the caring that the Torah demands, the high level of caring that the Torah demands. So when you look at all of the laws and all of the rabbinic literature, you come to the conclusion that the significance and the importance and the non-negotiable status of our treatment of animals being compassionate and caring. And you see what's going on today if you choose to take off the blinders and watch the videos of what's going on in slaughterhouses. And it's not only at the end of the life of animals, it's during the course of their lives, whether they're in the tight containers, they're given antibiotics, they're given food they're not even built to eat this. So all sorts of unnatural things are being done to animals. This is absolutely contrary to a lot of the Torah. And so I don't even understand how anyone can consider meat today or animal products being kosher. Because kosher, yeah, you go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, because this goes to a question I want to ask, because you mentioned the difference between a commandment and permission. And as you well know, in at least I would say in American Judaism particularly, there's obviously jokes about eating, lox and bagels, eating brisket. Like meat is a part of, a lot of the Jewish culture. So I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about, what you say was the permission, not the commandment, by
right.
according to the text, because I think that's something that a lot of people aren't as familiar with. That I think.
Right. So this is going to get a little juicy, but it's also going to ask people to step up their level of Torah learning. Okay, here we go. There are certain commandments. There's a commandment called Eshet Yafat Toar. That's when a person goes to war and they see in captivity a beautiful woman and they want to take her. They want, because you can take the spoils of war. So the Torah says you're allowed to take this woman. However, there is a procedure. She must, cut her hair, take off her makeup, and sit and mourn her parents for 30 days in your house. So, but I have a question for you. Is this something that you want your good Jewish child to grow up and strive for? Having a non-Jewish bride that he took as a captive in war? Is that something that we should strive for as Jews? Is this a Jewish value and ethic? No. So the rabbis say there, This commandment was given Keneged Yetzer Hara. We humans have certain desires. We have base desires. And like a child, here, the analogy is your 18-year-old child, or 16 or 17-year-old child comes to you and says, Dad, can I have the keys to the car? I said, it's a Saturday night. I really don't want you to go out in the car. And they keep on asking and asking and asking and asking. Finally, they break you down and you say, okay, fine. Here are the keys, but you better be, you better fill it up with gas. You better wash it, better clean up your room. You put all sorts of demands on them and you better be careful. Are you happy about it? Not at all. But you've given in to the child. God, because if you didn't give in, they'd take the car. It's like the child who grabs the candy at the counter, without their mother. Because when the mother says no, there's something in humanity that if you tell them no, they're going to do it anyway. So God very ingeniously said, yes, but if you're going to do it, we're going to do it under these circumstances. And it's because God, who created man, knows man's nature. If God would have said no, you would have just gone and done it. So there are certain commands. And this is particularly when there is great passion going on. There's another law. If a man is in the forest swinging an axe, and the axe happens to fly off and strike another man, killing him, the son of the killed person can go and hunt you down. What? Retribution? It says in the Torah, don't take revenge. So the Torah says, yes, you can, but here are the limitations to the law. He can run away, he has to go in front of a court. There are various things. The idea being that, no, this is not something that a Jew should do, not something that anyone should do. But if you tell them, no, you have no legal recourse, they're going to take the law in their hands because their passion is burning. So the Torah says, yes, but you can do this under these circumstances, but the person can run away and there's a city of refuge. Again, these are laws given when passion is running high. You can't control this person. They're going to go and be a vigilante, take the law into their own hands. So the Torah says, yes, but meat is in a similar status. Every time meat or eating meat is mentioned in the Torah, it is connected with the word ta'ava. That's strong base desire. When a person is filled with desire, such as with the woman in captivity, and when their father, when the axe head flies off, meat is in the same thing, because when a person has blood in their eyes, you can't talk logic to them. Their neocortex is not functioning. So what we do is we say, okay, let me give you a book that's about yay big, read all these laws, adhere to these laws, and then you can sit down and eat your meat. Well, hopefully a wise person would read through these laws and say, you know what, after this point in time, it's probably easier to pick up a vegetable and eat it than all of these laws. In other words, this is a permission, as opposed to you must love God, you must give tzedakah, you have to go up you have to eat matzah, you have to fast on Yom Kippur. These are things that that you must do. These are laws that are given and there's no negotiation. These, however, are permissions. You may do it. I'm not happy that you need to do it, but as a human being filled with passion, after you go through these steps and you still feel that you need to do it, this is how it's done. Was that clear?
So just because you certainly said a lot of information there, and I want to make sure people.
Right.
So basically, from what you have read and interpreted as a rabbi in your research, you believe that basically, when it comes to eating meat, that it has to do with something base and instinctual, internalized with human beings, and because of that, God allowed the eating of meat, but created so many restrictions that in a sense it's almost a clear incentive to eat, let's say, plant life and things like that? Is that
It's certainly easier. Yes, I would say 90% of what you just said.
okay?
It's because of the passion and we know today, when people talk about meat, it's like they sometimes can get illogical.
Mm.
And that's not so different from the Jews in the Torah. When they cry and they crave for meat, they start thinking that Egypt was a pleasure cruise, that they say, oh, we remember the watermelons and the squash that we ate in Egypt. You were 430 years a slave there. What are you talking about? And one of the interpreters says that when it says fish, the way that word is said, it's daga. That's referring to dead fish. So the meat created such a hysterics in their mind that they started thinking of the dead fish as being fresh fish. They started imagining, like they were going to fine restaurants. But that was the hysterics that the craving for the meat caused in them. So this is an understood phenomenon that happens. But when a person is caught in that cycle of thinking and hysteria, they can't think straight. But you sit down and you start reading all these books. Do you know, if you took the kosher books, all the laws about kosher, they're about that wide. And if you took out meat and milk, they come down to about that thin.
So no, go ahead, please.
So one would just logically say, if I want to live a more simplified, a more streamlined life, instead of having two sets of dishes, I'll just have one set of dishes. I can tell you, for living this way for the past 30 years, it is so simple. It is so much better. I don't even know where I would store my meat dishes if I had them.
So let me ask, well, actually two things I'll ask them. I'm going to ask more than two things, but for
Go
the
ahead.
two things. So one I would ask is, for, let's say, the sake of your synagogue and congregation, because as you said, you do offer vegan options. And as I mentioned earlier, for many people, there's so many meat and fish products that are kind of iconic in Jewish culture. I'm curious, first of all, have you been able to think of either foods that either already exist or have need to be created to kind of supplement for, let's say, traditional meals or things like that? And the second one, and this one I learned fairly recently, is there's some people who, talk about kosher vegan in the sense of like kosher vegetables and fruit, which I'm a little confused about. And while I don't expect you to be the expert on all things vegan and kosher, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Right. So the first question about creating substitutes or transitional foods, I really, and I see people do that, and I sort of raise my eyebrow. I don't do that. The theory is great food is great food. If you're eating a great meal, you're not thinking of the, either ice cream or pot roast, that your mom made. You're into that dish, and that's the idea. People think that vegan food, you're eating, sprouts and rocks. That maybe that's what it was once upon a time. You're eating like a prince today. So as far as making foods that are similar to Jewish, traditional holiday foods, I don't get bogged down with that. I've created new customs. And I can tell you that hundreds of people from my community have eaten at my house over the past 10 years. And no one has said, what I'm really looking for is that meat dish. Nobody, I've had some raging meat eaters and they've all been satiated. So I don't really, get involved with that. Start new customs. It's just a nice way to go about it. Now, that means I do have a Seder plate. I use, instead of the shank bone, I use a beet, which is an option in the Talmud. Having said that, I am very much a traditionalist. But in the food area, I I don't feel that need to create those similar foods, although there are many people doing it. As far as the kosher vegetables, all vegetables are kosher. There's no vegetables that are not. That's by their nature. Now, what we have to do with the leafy vegetables is we have to wash them thoroughly.
Okay.
So there are a number of ways to do it, none so hard. And one of the things that I say to people who don't eat vegetables because there are bugs in it, I said, you take broccoli or kale and you can vigorously wash it and you'll wash out the bugs because the Torah says you're not allowed to eat bugs. It is a serious infraction.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't wash the unkosher out of meat. What they're doing, whether it's the antibiotics or the torture that they're giving to these animals or the wrong foods, you can't wash that out. That you can do what you want, do all the magic you want, but you cannot. I can wash the bugs out of kale, in a couple of minutes. But all vegetables, what they do is they sell some bags that are pre-checked.
Okay.
Okay, I'd rather do it myself. Yeah, so that answers that.
Right. So where is your just for the person watching, where is your synagogue actually located, and also for your rabbinical background, because you mentioned that you had received it about 5 years ago. You've been you've been eating this way, or been eating consciously for over 30 years. Was this something that you gained through was enforced through your rabbinical education wherever you attended rabbinical school? Or
Excellent question. So the way I first started as a vegetarian. I actually married a vegetarian. And the day after the wedding, I decided, it will so simplify everything if we just have one set of dishes. I said, I'll go vegetarian. And it was 1990. It was a little bit edgy, and my partner was a great cook, so I wasn't sacrificing anything. And I just went into it blind. I really didn't go into it for anything. Over the years, I read an article in the New York Times by Michael Pollan. That was a very seminal article about, he bought a steer and he went out and he saw what was going on with animals. But again, it really didn't awaken me to the plight of animals. More so, it was about health. But it really, it all came to fore 11 years ago when my favorite brother died from cancer. And I said, oh my gosh, he got cancer. I better study this because this can, we're the same genetic pool. And that's when I started studying and seeing videos and reading books, and for all that time. And that was the first time I learned about the relationship between the power of foods to make us healthy and and fight disease. I never knew that before. And it so empowered me and changed my life. I said, I can't get enough of this. The wonderful thing is that I was giving myself all of these benefits for the 20 years prior, unbeknownst to me. And then it took me a couple more years to become vegan, when I then opened myself up to the plight of animals. And it was so becoming a rabbi and calling myself the vegan rabbi. Actually, I was not intending to do that, to take that moniker, but there was somebody else who was, somebody alerted me to the fact that somebody was calling himself the barbecue rabbi. And I said, what? This guy's killing people with the license of a rabbi. I have to counter that. So this was my counter. Give life to people.
Interesting. So just to kind of go back a little bit. So where did you actually study your, what school did you attend to become a rabbi, actually?
Right. So my entire life, I went to yeshiva my entire life. In fact, I'll tell you, I was slated to be a rabbi early on. When I was 10 years old, I was going to another school. And my friends from the school that I was at used to say, oh, Donnie's going to rabbi school. They were joking that I was going to a rabbi school. And at age 20, I went to Israel. I mean, in retrospect, it all looks like perfect plan. This was all by the seat of my pants. I went to yeshiva, and I learned in Bnei Brak for 2.5 years, and in Jerusalem for another 1.5 years before I came back to YU to finish off my degree, Yeshiva University. When I was in YU, I was called into the rabbinic department, and I was sat down, and they said to me, "We want you to be a rabbi." And I said, me? You're talking about me being a rabbi? No way. I could not see myself. And throughout my life, I was asked so many times, "Are you a rabbi? Are you a rabbi? Are you a rabbi?" So there's a rule that everyone wants God to talk to them. Mm-hmm. Well, God doesn't, dial you up and you don't see the number coming, the caller ID on your phone, but you'll get messages from around, your neighborhood. You'll get it from people, and if you hear a message being repeated to you, "Are you a rabbi? Are you a rabbi?" That's actually not the people. That is heaven talking and saying, "You better be a rabbi." Well, if you don't answer your door at first, heaven's going to knock a little bit louder, and then they're going to knock your door down. Well, I got my door knocked down. And so I had to become a rabbi, because if I didn't, well, I don't know what was going to happen to me next. But yeah, and when I became a rabbi, everyone said, "Oh, it's about time." It wasn't like somebody came to me and said, "What are you, rabbi? You a rabbi?" Everyone said, "It's about time." I was like the last one to know the punchline to the joke. And so this has been a culmination of my entire life. So as I said before, when I became a rabbi, I didn't form a new philosophy. I was forming my philosophy my entire life. So whatever media I was taking in, whatever music I was taking in, whatever beliefs, that the system is holistic. To be Jewish is not to do this at this time. Being Jewish is a 24, your sleep is Jewish, is spiritual, is holy. You're going to the bathroom. People laugh that when you come out of the bathroom, you say a blessing. Before we eat, we say a blessing. Every breath we take, if we're living the holistic life, every breath is an act of God, is an act of worship. And so the culmination of my life has been to be a rabbi, to be one who teaches others how to do this, how to bring every part of their life into the worship of God.
So let me ask, and first of all, congratulations on, obviously, sounds like you had a major life experience in this trajectory, and then you found it in a way that seems to be cultivating in a way that makes you truly happy and is able to get your message out. So, first of all, congrats to you on that. Wonderful.
Thank you.
But let me ask, in regards to, as you mentioned the media, and obviously right now we have the coronavirus, which is obviously bringing new challenges to people who are trying to feel that quench for either that spiritual awakening or, Torah study or whatever it may be. I'm curious, what has been your experience since this has taken place, and have you found avenues to reach out to your congregation as well as, I suppose, others who might be interested in your message?
That's a really good question, Dustin. It's been a challenge, and just because somebody is spiritual and sees their trajectory and every breath is, worship of God, it doesn't mean that you don't have challenges and they're not ups and downs. We've all lost something. A lot of us have, whether it's going out, the physical contact, the emotional contact, money, jobs, we've all lost, and we're all a bit more humble than before. And that's actually a good thing. The thing that I initially rejected, and I still do, and please let me finish before anyone draws conclusions that I'm crazy. All of the health that I've worked to cultivate and help others and inspired others to cultivate in their own lives contributes to a robust immune system. In all of the discussions that you hear out there, they have, or most of them, they have never mentioned the immune system, and they treat it as some little thing that we may have. Oh, that's a little trivial thing. Our immune system is industrial strength. It is beyond elegant. It is beyond magnificent. It is a system that has been installed in us from birth, and that we have been building building its database to recognize various things that come against us. And the elegance with which it deals. If you've ever seen a martial artist who can fight off 100 people at one time, and each one he basically flicks away, that's our immune system. It is magnificent and powerful. And it has never been even included in the discussion of how to go about this coronavirus period. Having said that, during the flu season or during the cold season, I push elevators with my elbow. I don't take ridiculous chances. I cover my mouth. I go places. I take proper precautions because, yes, germs can get into us. You know, you don't walk into the middle of the street without looking. You can cross a busy street as long as you take all of the precautions. So even with a good immune system, you still have to take precautions. So yes, I wear a mask when I go into the store. I wash my hands. I do those things, but I am not running scared. And that's important. What's in here is really important. If you go to at bat, let's say you're playing baseball and you're, I hope I don't strike out. I hope I don't strike out. I hope I don't strike out. You've just said strike out. That's what you're going to get. But if you say, I'm going to hit the ball hard, and that's what you're saying, that's what you're going to get. So our approach towards this crisis is very important, what goes on here. And if you eat this way and you have lived this way, and you have built up a decent immune system and you're not overly compromised, even if you get sick, you'll get through it. So that's how, and so that helps us not get too depressed, not get too low. And if we do, we can bounce back quickly enough.
So one of my questions is, and kind of alluded to the last one, but I'll be a little more specific. In order to be in touch with your congregation or people who you want to get your message across, obviously, because you are a rabbi, but you also have obviously this passion for, you know, this philosophy that you want people to be aware of. You know, have you found that doing things like Zoom, how do you use YouTube? Like, what have been ways you've been trying to adopt to be able to get in touch with people? Because one of the challenges is also going to be, of course, you know, some of the high holidays coming up in fall and winter, depending on, you know, what happens with, you know, if there's a second wave, if there's not one. So I'm curious what has been your approach, or what it has either seemed to be working, or things that people could be doing. Because I'm sure you're, as much as you would enjoy sitting and reading through this whole entire thing, I'm sure you've had to find ways to engage as well.
Right. So I've emailed people, and I have done some Zoom sessions, both in learning Torah. We have our Wednesday night Torah 360, when we do text-based analysis and Kabbalah, and we bring it all together. And I've done some Zoom stretch videos, because stretching is really important. That's the secret to life. Not only is eating well important, body movement. If there's one secret to aging well and with elegance and with dignity, it's stretching. So I've done a number of stretch classes. However, you know, people are also fatigued from the information and the Zooms and everything. So I don't want to overtax that. So it's a careful balance. I haven't even thought about the high holidays. We're not doing sessions. We're not doing prayer online.
Okay.
That's not within our customs.
Okay.
But I have not thought about the high holidays. On the other hand,
Mm.
doing services alone, everyone relies upon mom to drive the car.
Mm.
you know and when we get to be old enough to drive, it sort of takes the magic out of it. Our perceptions change. So we've always counted on the rabbi and the cantor, and well, I can't do that. Well, now you're going to have to.
Mm.
And that's not so bad. It's like the baby bird flying. It loves when the mom comes and drops the worm in its mouth and being a baby. And it's not happy when it's pushed out of the nest. It is screaming at its mom, saying, "What are you doing to me?" But
Mm.
we all know that as it starts flapping the wings and it's complaining, it's very good for the bird. And that's sort of what happened, what this is forcing us all to do. We're all having to step up and learn things that we're uncomfortable with. So in that way, there are silver linings.
So let me ask, because we are heading towards, I think, near to the conclusion. I want to know, for you, as you claim yourself the vegan rabbi, as you talked a little bit about, the difference between obviously commandments and, kind of adjunct approval in a very tough environment.
I call it the yes, but
Yeah,
permissions.
the permissions, the yes but, and talking about the different, the focus on the vegetables the way they are, and not so much trying to reinvent the wheel in a sense of old meals. I'm curious, for anyone who's watching this who may be curious about connecting Judaism with being vegan, or wants to, besides the moral reason, what would you want them to know? What would you want them to get out of this discussion?
Yes. Going plant-based used to be a sacrifice. You had to give up things. It was like being a Jew. You had to, being a religious Jew, you got to give up things. But it's actually no longer like that. There are vegan ice creams. There are vegan burgers. There are vegan cheeses. Have you gone to the milk section lately? It's filled with plant-based milks. You're sacrificing nothing. In fact, it's sort of like a gas-driven car and an EV. It's an upgrade. You're not giving up. You're getting better performance. It's cheaper. There's less maintenance. It's all the upside. But what is difficult for humans to do is make a transition. So that's one thing I want them to know. And that transition, you will never look back, because you're going to be eating foods that taste better. Your tongue, your taste buds are going to wake up. Your soul is going to wake up, because now when you sit and eat a meal and you know that you're doing good for your body, you're doing good for the planet, you're doing good for animals, it adds components into the taste, into the experience of the meal, as opposed to the opposite. You're not sacrificing. It takes a little bit of work to change. Your taste buds change in 3 weeks, but it will be the best thing you've ever tried, and it's fun.
So, for people who want to learn more about either your philosophy or your congregation, which I don't think we mentioned yet.
Right.
Yeah, please.
Congregation Beit Dovid. It's in Caldwell, New Jersey. It's the shul is currently in my apartment. We meet once or twice a month for Sabbath services. It's designed for everyone, in the sense of you can be an experienced davener, somebody who's an experienced shul goer,
Mhm.
or a beginner. We have people. We have, in the 5 years that we've had services, we have created our own personality and a perfect balance between experience and less than experience. And somehow I'm the perfect teacher to teach reading and pronunciation, and it's really unique. People and even if you're an experienced person, you're going to learn something new. You're going to see something in a way you've never seen it before. And so we keep it interesting and keep you on your toes. Literally, something may happen that I don't even know about because it's spontaneous. The singing is phenomenal. I've been a Torah reader for 35 years. So when I read the Torah, all of the learning that I've done throughout my life comes through in some way. It's really special. And that's not even talking about the Kiddush. The Kiddush is always phenomenal. In fact, many times I wish that if I could only take a picture of this Kiddush table, sometimes it's beautiful. And, people in the shul help us, put out the Kiddush. It's a wonderful, wonderful time. And so it's in a modern Orthodox. We do have a separation. I call it a Caldwell Mechitza. It's a separation between men and women. But if you want to stand on the side, and there's sort of a no man's land where, you're not forced. But having said that, we count on the women. Women are a major component of our community. And if you've ever been, so where I would say we're in the middle between Carlbach and Chabad. And we try to take the best of all worlds. And also I'm a trained cantor. I went to the cantorial school at YU for 3.5 years. So it's not just random tunes. There is formality, but there's also a lot of life. And we would love anyone to join us.
So can you say one more time just the name of your congregation, and if there's like your website or way to contact you?
Right. It's Beit Dovid, BETDOVID, betdavid.org. We're on the web. If you go onto YouTube and look up the vegan Rabbi Donn Gross, you'll see my videos. There are also some videos about Beit David, where I'm interviewed there. And also, I'm a vegan caterer. So meals2heal.catering.com, where you can see pictures of the food, the beautiful foods, the nutritious foods. And it's not only my business, it's my belief. And I wouldn't do it any other way.
So then I have to ask them before we wrap up is, of course, is there any particular vegan meals or any particular dishes you would recommend, whether for someone who's new or not new, but from your experience, I'd be very curious what would be.
So that's a great question. I was thinking about this. There are foods that you can make without even cooking. There's a great mock tuna here. I was talking about not making those types of foods, but there is a chickpea tuna that you can make that is phenomenal. When you make a great meal, the tongue is going wild. You have taste buds popping all over the place. Not every meal can be that way. Not every dish can be that way, but you want to make interesting things. The same way I run a shul is the same way I make food. So a place that I would go to, One Green Planet, has wonderful recipes. And what I would suggest people do is look at the pictures. And when you see something that resonates with you, try it. You may be doing things, you may be buying some ingredients that you're not used to, but new novel experiences are a great way to build neurons in your brain. And there's so many people that are willing to help, and their websites, there are Facebook groups, there's videos on YouTube on either starting out, but yeah, I would you can make some simple bean salads, take some cut up. The brilliance of vegan cooking or vegan food is that you're taking basic elements, some spices, some beans, and some vegetables, and it's the combination of how you do it. It's really not complicated. Take a can of beans, let's say black beans, cut up some celery, cut up some red pepper, a little bit of olive oil, some apple cider vinegar, maybe some balsamic vinegar and lemon juice, salt and pepper, and you'll have people going nuts. Nothing complicated. For $5, you make this great little salad or less. So yeah, start small, start simple, and expand from there. Let it. It's an organic process. So just let it unfold.
Well, Rabbi Gross, the vegan rabbi, I want to thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today. I think many people who are watching this certainly learned a lot or have at least opened their mind to some of the ideas you've mentioned, which is a wonderful thing. So for anybody watching, I want to wish you good health, stay safe. Hope you'll watch more of our videos. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rabbi Gross, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Dustin.